Good morning. Welcome to Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Church in Pasadena. Welcome to all members, friends, and guests. My name is Bonnie Bluestein, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. Neighborhood Church creates and grows an inclusive community of faith connected by love, spirit, and service. We acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, the traditional caretakers of the lands and waters of this campus. With respect for the rights and wisdom of indigenous people, we acknowledge our harmful colonial histories and commit to decolonizing our own practices, to learning new ways of being in community and with each other, in good relationship with the indigenous peoples of this land and with the land itself. Today's service is led by Reverend Dr. Omega Burkhart. The music today is in honor of Women's History Month and is led by music director Dr. Zenaida Robles, with accompanist Wells Lang and Wendy Hunter and Tony LaBelle singing. Please take a moment to silence your devices as we begin our service. Families with young children are always welcome in the sanctuary, and there's additional seating in the entry foyer or narthex. I have one brief announcement. ACAC, the neighborhood church group that supports local foster youth, is gearing up for our spring activities. Our annual Foster Youth Easter Bag Drive starts next week. Look for the sign-up sheet on the ACAC patio table today. There are about 50 foster children and youth, so please be one child's Easter bunny. And if you can be the bunny for 2 children, much appreciated. Up next is Director of Congregational Life, Ginger Fury, with another announcement.
Good morning. It's good to see all of you this morning. Hi. We have been so excited to see so many visitors and new friends that have been joining us, and I would like to invite you, if you would like to learn more about Unitarian Universalism or about Neighborhood Church or how to become a member, to please join myself and Reverend Omega after service today next door in the living room for an informal chat to learn a little bit more about us, and so we can get to know you personally. We will also offer this again on the 30th and on April 6th. So if you can't join us today, mark your calendars for that. And New Member Sunday is April 27th. So now is a great time if you've been thinking about joining us or you have any questions about membership, please feel free to come find myself or Reverend Omega. We'd love to have you participate. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to our pledge team. If our pledge team would like to come up, Farrell, Vicki, and Ann.
Hi, I'm Farrell Menon, and I'm representing the pledge team, which consists of Ann Rector, Vicki Heiston, I'm saying her name wrong right here, and so I want to say good morning to everybody here and everybody online. So, we're making progress. This is just the beginning of our 3rd week, but we're already halfway to our goal. So, and I had to change it this morning because a couple other pledges came in. So we're at 290,000 on our goal for 575 and from 92 pledging units. So that's progress, right? We've also made progress on our challenge grant. You all remember that? We needed 15 people to up their pledge 10%. We're close, we're not there, so there's room for more of you to increase your pledge to help us get that extra $5,000. Now, even if you can't do the 10%, please consider increasing your pledge so that we can do more and more here for our beloved church. If you haven't made your pledge yet, come by the table. We actually have been enjoying talking with everybody about pledging, or you can pledge online. For those of you at home, You've got I think you have the QR code right up there like we have up here. So we're trying to make it as easy for you as possible. And if you're new to neighborhood and ready to pledge, come by, we'll tell you what to do, or you can go to the meeting with Ginger and Reverend Omega. That will help you understand about how pledging fits into being a member of the church. It's important that we hear from all of you. If you have any questions about pledging, come by. We've also got somebody from the board next to us today to help talk to you about any questions you have about the budget. So thanks to everybody who's contributed so far. See you at the pledge table.
More extensive announcements as well as our order of service this morning are available as a link in the Sunday email. Our order of service is also visible online by scanning the QR code on the back of your hymnal with your phone camera. Again, welcome to Neighborhood Church, whoever you are and wherever you are in your spiritual journey. Welcome to this inclusive faith community connected by love, spirit, and service.
Well, very good morning to you. The sun is shining today. It is my pleasure to welcome you today, whether you're gathered here in our sanctuary or with us online in another time and space, perhaps. I'm a white woman with silvering hair and bangs. Today I'm not wearing my glasses because I like to be able to see your faces, which is impossible when you're wearing readers. Today I'm wearing my blue robe and my colorful stole. It matches the flowers here next to me. I have gold jewelry on in my ears and my nose. As an act of inclusivity, you'll hear our worship team this year periodically describe ourselves with visual descriptors. This is to assist our members and guests, whether here in person or online, who are visually impaired. The theme of the month of March in our spiritual exploration and in our worship services is trust. In the words of my colleague, the Reverend Scott Taylor, we gather here to hear the call of trust through our hearts that have been bruised by broken promises and dreams deferred. May we listen again for that longing to repair and be repaired, that hunger to start anew, like this flame that we will light. Trust is something that needs to be rekindled again and again. May today's spark be the fire of a new match tomorrow. Come, let us worship together today. I invite you into this space this morning, your whole selves, your whole beautiful, complicated selves. Bring in your bruised hearts and your hearts that long for change. Bring in your whole self, attuned to your needs and attuned to the needs of others in this community and beyond. I invite us into a shared moment of silence as we center ourselves in this space and time. Find yourself seated or in a position that is comfortable to you, extending your shoulders upward, the top of your head heavenward, your feet grounding into the sweet earth below us. Let us gather in silence for a moment before we begin. We are attuned to our needs and attuned to the needs of those around us.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn, number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
And it's telling me
Now, usually after our first hymn, we have a time for all ages, and we do have a time for all of the ages today. It's a two-parter. We're going to hear in our story in a few moments that Hannah is going to share with us about a little boy who grows a garden in the most unexpected place, and certain things start to happen in his community, which is fantastic. So it is a story about the power of a small action that can move towards building community and that really inspires other people to also take some small actions, and then really cool and beautiful stuff happens. So we have the adult version of the Time for All Ages first, and we're going to invite up here Catherine Blue Holmes, who's going to tell us a little bit about how she cultivates this garden of community.
Good morning to those of you in the sanctuary and those of you online. My name is Catherine Blue Holmes, and I am a short white woman with glasses and wearing dark clothes and shoulder-length hair. My husband Ryan and I have been around this campus for a long time. So long that we've both given this speech before, in fact. I'd wager that many of the reasons we gave previously for contributing still apply. But this year feels a bit different to me. This year there's an urgency that I haven't felt before. For all that I have loved and appreciated this church for many, many years, I admit that I have taken for granted that this church would always be here for my kids and their kids. With both the fires and the upheaval in our federal government, it suddenly feels like something we really need to work for, not just assume. It's easy to get sad and anxious about all of this. I've done my fair share of fretting, usually at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. But the thing that makes me feel just a little better about the world is to know that through all of this, I'm still trying to build up this church as an institution, build up our supplies of hand soap, markers, and those big pads of easel paper, build up the people in our community to make sure they know that I'm still here doing what I can. This year it feels more than ever like it is up to me, to us, to ensure that the church continues on. That's why Ryan and I have joined the match and are increasing our pledge by more than 10%. Pledging to this church is something that we can do. Ryan and I especially appreciate that this church has met us and our kids where we are. Our children, Jane and Thomas, are here every week, and we appreciate the village we have here. Through Al, de Benneville, and the holiday pageants, they have made friends here. Whether they choose this faith for themselves when they are adults, they know what it is to be a UU, and they will carry that with them. Ryan and I decided a long time ago that this is our spiritual home, but the sense of ownership that we feel grows more acute with each passing day. We are grateful for the past, and we are as generous as we can be in the present. And because we see people all around us stepping up just like we are hopeful for the future. Please join us in pledging as much as you can. Thank you.
All right, now I'd like to invite all the children up to the front as we read our story. So today we're going to be reading The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days when everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. There he is. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. That's good. Do not explore active railroad tracks. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. There's his plants. They are kind of dying. Liam may have not been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway that very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. Does anyone know why he's singing to the plants? That's right. If you sing to plants, you release carbon dioxide, and the plants take that in and makes oxygen. Unless I'm wrong, I'm not great at science. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up further and further down the tracks, and were closely followed by more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the curious garden explored every corner of the railway. There he is. That's really beautiful. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden. But thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and the mosses set up first. They popped up further and further from the railway and were closely followed by more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. A fire extinguisher? Oh, that's a, I don't know what that is actually. Fire hydrant, thank you. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. It's a crane. It's got a fish. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed, but of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. Look at that, the whole city, from where it started. The end. Now, if you would join me in singing our children out to their classes.
Each Sunday, our congregation dedicates 100% of its contributions to 501c3 organizations or neighborhood church-based social justice activities that are making a difference in our community and the world. Each selected guest organization aligns with our community's mission and values and is nominated by church members who often are longtime volunteers and supporters of these change-making organizations. You can donate in one of two ways. You can use your cell phone to donate by texting the number on the screens, or if you'd prefer to donate in person, put your donation in one of the designated boxes during the music or after the service. There's a donation box here in the front, behind the back center row, and in the narthex entryway on the table. You may rise during the music to put your donation in the box if you wish. Please extend help to those in your neighborhood who may need assistance reaching the donation boxes. If you wish to make a payment toward your pledge or contribute to church operations, make a note in the subject line or use an envelope available at the donation boxes. This week, our gifts will support the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC. Here with more information is Katie Goulding.
Good morning. UUSC's work began in 1939 when Reverend Waitzel and Martha Sharp took an extraordinary risk helping refugees escape Nazi persecution in Europe. UUSC advances human rights and social justice around the world, partnering with over 77 organizations worldwide, meeting those who confront unjust power structures and mobilizing to challenge oppressive and offensive policies. Our work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity. Of the UUSC's many advocacy initiatives, I would like to briefly speak with you about two of them. The first is Pink Haven. As many of you know, our trans and gender-expansive beloveds are under attack and being criminalized in many U.S. states and by the federal government. This is so serious that they fit the criteria to be designated as internally displaced people, IDPs, by the United Nations. The UUA and UUSC are partnering directly with frontline trans-led organizations to create networks of safety and direct support for beloveds who need to relocate, access health care across state lines, or stay safe as possible where they are. Because of safety concerns for these trans organizers, we are prioritizing security over transparency right now, which is allowing us to move together in deep trust during these crucial, scary times. Please know, though, that all donations to Pink Haven are moving directly into the hands of trans-led organizers and being used to support trans and non-binary people in accessing the resources and support they need to survive and thrive. UUSC encourages you to give as abundantly and courageously as you are able so we can help support this work. The second initiative is Together We Rise, Rapid Response Task Force, a mobilization network designed to take immediate action when civil liberties, democracy, and human rights are at risk. Our faith in human dignity, our belief in collective liberation, and our commitment to justice call us to act. By signing up on the UUSC website to be part of Together We Rise, you'll receive urgent alerts and opportunities to act. Whether through advocacy, amplifying frontline voices, or pressuring policymakers to protect our communities. UUSC thanks the Share the Plate Committee for allowing Neighborhood Church to be part of the solidarity movement that can make justice possible through your support. Thank you.
Thank you for giving generously.
As you make your way to the donation boxes this morning, we invite you to consider these words by the ancient mystic Hildegard von Bingen. We'll sing in Latin, "Love abounds in everything, from the lowest depths to the highest stars, and is loving to all, for the Supreme Creator gave a kiss of peace, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever."
In a story told by Elisa Davy Permain, there were once two friends walking down the sidewalk on a busy street during rush hour. There were all sorts of noises, car horns honking, feet shuffling, people were talking, and amid all the noise, one of the friends turned to the other and said, "Wait, I hear a cricket." "No way," her friend responded. "How could you hear a cricket with all the noise?" You must be imagining it. Besides, I've never seen a cricket in the city. No, really, I do hear a cricket. I'll show you. She stopped for a moment, and then she led her friend across the street to a big cement planter with a tree in it. Pushing back the leaves a little bit, she found that little brown cricket. That is amazing, her friend said. You must have a superhuman hearing. What's your secret? No, responded the friend, my hearing is just the same as yours. There's no secret. The first woman replied, well, wait, watch. I'll show you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a bunch of pennies and threw them on the ground. Amid all the noise of the city, everyone within 30 feet turned their head to see what the sound of the money was, where it was coming from. See, she said, it's all a matter of what you're listening for. On Friday, March 13th, 2020, my sons came home from school quite jubilant. One was a freshman and the other was a senior. Now, at the time, they were attending different schools. They had different interests, different classes, different friends. But when they came home that afternoon together, they were quite united in their joy. Maybe this happened to your family too. You see, that was the day that our school district shut down, ostensibly for 2 weeks, until the coronavirus situation worked itself out. Neither of my sons went back to their high schools again. Now, one graduated by being handed his items through a 2-inch slot in our window in the car, and the other found a different path. Online school was not a good fit Today, they're both doing very well, but the changes that the closures of the pandemic wrought on their lives and mine and yours will be felt for the rest of our lives. Time is funny. This week, as I reflected back on that day, on that anniversary of what was happening 5 years ago, all of those emotions of that moment, all those feelings in my body were present again. I saw a picture popped up on my social media memories that I took of an empty grocery store. I went shopping that day while my kids were still at school, and I could feel again this past week that pit in my stomach, the panic at watching other people panic buy all the toilet paper and cleaning supplies. And we can giggle a little bit about that now, but that was scary. That was a scary thing, and I can feel it even talking about it. Maybe you feel it as I'm talking about it today. Time is funny that way. In many ways, the pandemic is over, but in many ways, it's not, and it will always be with us. We are all the ages we have ever been. That quote, or a variation of it, has been attributed to many authors, including Madeleine L'Engle, but many have said versions of it. We contain all the variations of the people and the communities we have ever been. We still contain our scared and hurt selves from the pandemic on this 5th anniversary of the beginning. Perhaps some of us are still grieving someone close to us who perished. We certainly grieve the loss of community. We grieve the changes that those closures created for our church community and our schools and our jobs, no doubt. Even as we are growing and we're adapting to new things, we will always be the people who experience the pandemic and the fires and our other personal traumas that go unnamed here. We all have them. We are all the ages we have ever been. Our church of people, we are all the ages we have ever been. This church community here, all the traumas it has endured, you have endured, we have endured together. The ways that we react to uncertainty, the ways that we react to surprise, the ways that we react to unease, all these ways that we react are actually reactions to previous surprises and previous anxieties and previous uncertainties. Our protector selves react today because of the information that those protector selves learned from the past. This makes adaptation and change in a church system especially complicated. It's particularly complicated because all of us bring, as we should, all of us bring our whole selves to this community. We're particularly vulnerable in this community. We bring it all here, and we should. That is right. Our individual stories and ways of being come into this system and form it and are also changed by it. That is why we are called to be together. Not to mention the church's history that may predate your participation here, the history of this church and the stories. This makes being in a church that wants to change, that needs to change, this makes being in a church hard. Now, towards the end of my first year with you, that was just last year, by the way. Towards the end of my first year with you, in preparation for this, my second year, I had a conversation with the board leadership about what my goals for this year were going to be. After the initial year of ministry, now the first year of ministry is often spent listening. I wanted to spend my time with you last year listening to you, not reacting, just listening, not changing, just observing, getting to know you. But what I was hoping for my second year with you is to center the work of what I was calling slow church. I'd been thinking for some time, long before I was called here, about what it means to gather as a church community in an age where being part of a church community is countercultural. What does that mean? What does it mean to gather as a church, a community of people, myself included, which you may not want to hear from your minister, but myself included, who have a complex relationship with religion? What does it mean to gather in this way? So I'd been thinking for a long time about an idea of slow church, a phrase that I was sort of borrowing from the slow food movement, right? Where one cultivates what is local, where one relishes the preparation and the joy of sometimes really lengthy processes. I'm starting a sourdough journey right now. It has taken me like 2 months for one mediocre loaf. Slow food, though, I'm trying to relish this. The idea of slow church, where we don't have to offer all the things at all times. We're not a drive-through. This is not a drive-through experience. We focus on what is healthy, what is sustaining, where we share nourishment with others because we relish that other people are also thriving. Where we can't try to be all the things, we're reasonable about our capacity. A church that focuses on the basics of what we do well. We cultivate what's local. We inform and form that vitality. We aren't reactive, rather, we're deliberate and slow in our discernment. We take time. There's joy in the process. And then this year happened. Just that quickly, slow church, out the window. Grind culture snuck back. The feeling of a lack of transparency, not quite getting enough done each day, worried about the community and whether or not we're going to survive and how to respond to such tragic situations. The anxiety and displacing our anxiety, it was all back very quickly. So here's the thing about church systems. Change in church systems, rebuilding trust that has been broken, it takes longer than pretty much anyone likes. It takes, on average, a minister 4, 5, 6 years to build trust with a congregation. And usually, now, please note, I'm not inviting this, I'm just being realistic. About year 3, things go to hell. That is not a church pun intended for that, but that's a reality of the situation. It's usually around year 7 when the church gets going after a big change. Now, whether that's a change of minister or a change provoked by some other community shaking event. And how many community shaking events have there been here in your memory? Several. We are all the churches we have ever been to. We are all the churches we have ever been. Now, part of Reverend Teresa Cooley's work with you for the 3 years prior to my arrival, part of her work as interim minister here was to help you speak truthfully about what has happened in this church in recent history. The reality is that there have been events over the course of decades that have created breaches in trust. In some case, this was inappropriate behavior, of ministers as far back as the early 1970s. In others, it was unboundaried or problematic relationships, behavior of staff or lay leaders. In all cases, the effects of broken trust still live in our church system today. And if we don't name it very clearly, it will be hard to continue to build trust going forward. We are all the churches we have ever been. Trust is not built by being reactive. We can't be intentional when we're being reactive. It's built by being deliberate, and when we do the things we say we're going to do. Trust is built when we take accountability for mistakes and errors in judgment that we all make. Trust is built slowly and by small acts, even when the events of our world push us to be reactive and to move faster. Trust is built by building relationships. As Reverend Jennifer Garner and others have said, relationships are built at the speed of trust, and social change happens at the speed of relationships. I'd say also, I would add to that as religious communities, we have our own special speed. We are moving at the speed of church, which is sometimes slow, but we are moving. We are also all the ages we have ever been, for sure, but we are aging, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing because we aren't disappearing. We aren't irrelevant. We are changing, maybe at the speed of church, but we are growing to understand ourselves at this place in time, which is different and new. Not that we haven't had hardships and terrible things happen in the past, but this movement right now is new. We're growing to understand how to meet this moment together. And that requires some change. And change requires trust. Now, the view from the pulpit, if you will allow me the metaphor, it is positive. I see us as a community finding ways to be responsive to the needs of this church and our greater community outside. There's greater communication about what church leadership means and what the best ways that leadership can be to serve the mission of this church. Mutual aid systems were created and are continuing to be sustained by you, this congregation of carers and leaders. Nowhere more evident than in the response to the fires recently. This is an ongoing response that will change and adapt as needs also change. I also see how the newly formed rapid response team is approaching the work of values-driven community organizing to face authoritarian times. I see in that group a desire for change, for meeting the moment in a way that is building trust. I see how this year's pledge drive is also demonstrating trust, both by the leaders of the drive and you all, the pledgers. There's trust in the vision of a future for this church, and you are making it happen. And all of this important trust-building work is based on a very simple premise that we show up when we say we'll show up. That we'll act on our values, not just espouse them, but act on them. And this is important because we are called to meet the moment of this wacky world in ways that will always provoke us to relive the traumas of our past. Whether those are individual traumas or collective traumas or church traumas. In a sermon given at the Service of the Living Tradition at the General Assembly of 2023, the Reverend Chris Bice had a beautiful sermon in which he called the work of the church slow like a turtle, and he urged everyone to chant, "Go, turtles, go." Go, turtles, go. It was the most inspiring and also slowest and weird chant I have ever participated in. Yes, we are going slowly. It was beautiful, and it was really important. He said this in that sermon: we are not changing because we want to. We are changing because we have to. In the Unitarian Universalist Church, we believe in evolution, and now we have to practice it. Go, turtles, go. As we are called to respond to an increasingly complicated world, as we are called to hold on to what nourishes us in this church, and also let go of what no longer serves us, that's hard. As we are called to evolve, let us be reminded that trust is a practice. Trust is an accumulation of small acts. They are small acts centered in our values. Trust is knowing that we have been hurt before. We have been scared before. And we are tender because of our traumas. That is appropriate. We learn from that, but trust is knowing that we can navigate change, and we can be strong precisely because of all of the ages we have ever been. We have wisdom from what has come before, and we can attune our ears, we can listen for the cricket, we can attune our ears to the sound of song above all of the din, the noise, and the chaos. Trust is knowing that this may take a very long time, but also slowing down can be joyful. It can be a joyful practice of relishing the long process before the outcome is made manifest. May it be so.
Our closing hymn is number 1051. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing, "We Are."
We cultivate the gardens we give attention to, whether they're in broken down, disused rail lines or not. We hear the crickets, we prepare our ears to hear, even in the bustle of the city. We create trust when we are intentional about the small acts that we are able to fulfill, and when we acknowledge that we will always bring our reactions to all of our history and our complicated selves into those moments. Cultivation of trust is a long process. May we go from here today knowing that trust is a practice. It's a practice of intention, of slowing down, and of finding joy as we go. And won't it be amazing to look back at the age we are now